Smile is a horror movie about a curse that spread at the moment of death from one person to the next. Once cursed, the victim is on a timer until they meet their own demise. Join us as we discuss one of the bigger releases from this past Halloween season. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Hey.
I can't help but notice, Tim, that you're not smiling right now.
Oh yeah.
You can keep that going even if you try. You're too happy.
I am a happy little elf.
You're too much of a happy person. Well, this is a horror movie podcast. We get together, we talk about horror films. This episode, we watch Smile, which I know people were probably looking forward to us checking out. It was, one of the other. There was a lot of October, or some were September, but they were still around for all of October. So there was a lot of horror movies getting into the spooky season, and this is one that's now available to stream, so we finally get a chance to check it out. We'll start spoiler free as we always do. Of course, we'll give you a warning before we get into spoilers, but the basic premise of Smile is it's very much like The Ring, I would say, where someone is effectively cursed because someone commits suicide in front of them while smiling, and then they're on this ticking clock to figure out how this curse works and maybe beat it if they're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the premise. That's the movie. There's a lot of creepy smiling at people.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, you're just making noises at me. What's your thoughts and feelings here?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to be polite and not interrupt you, but I guess if you want me to just cut you off mid-sentence, I can start doing that.
Well, no, I just, I'm just curious. Like, how did you feel about the trailer, Tim? There you go. That's a nice, comfortable leading question to make you feel welcome.
So this is interesting. I believe we talked about it on one of the Even More Screams episode, which I had brought to you because I forget what it was, but I saw the trailer at like some movie I went to, and I thought it looked really, really bad. But like weirdly bad in this like generic kind of way that I feel like we haven't really seen in a while. Like maybe it's because of the, like last couple of years with everything going on that, there's maybe not as many movies in the theaters or whatever. And, there's been like a lot of horror movies coming out, but, ones that have been kind of more unique or whatever, that I feel like we haven't gotten this kind of bland generic, thing that we kind of don't like and make fun of. So I remember when the trailer first came out, I brought it to you and I was like, oh, let's watch this and like, kind of make fun of it on Even More Screams or whatever, because it just looks so goofy and dumb. So my surprise was that people like were weirdly into this. Like I kind of thought, oh, this looks so dumb and like, let's goof on it or whatever. But then afterwards, like as it got closer to the movie, I saw people starting to get like, oh yeah, I can't wait. Smile, coming out, like I'm going to be there, just a few days or whatever. So I was kind of surprised. I was like, are people actually digging this? And then, kind of once it came out, I started like hearing people that have seen it, and like people, who I'm friends with and people that I, whose opinions I trust and stuff, saying like, oh yeah, like, this movie was great. It ruled, like such a fun time. And I was kind of flabbergasted because I was like, really? Like that looked like so bad. I thought it looked like so dumb. Yeah, I was weirdly like kind of taken back by some of the positive reviews and buzz it was getting. And I mean, maybe I could be wrong about this, but a lot of the reactions I was seeing seemed to be like genuine. Like it wasn't the kind of thing like where people were like, oh, it's so crazy that, I can't believe it. Like, it's so bad, but like in such a fun, goofy way. Like, it wasn't like
it's not like when we saw the trailer for Megan and said, this looks amazing because it looks terrible.
Right. Yeah, exactly. or like kind of, I guess maybe I like something I was thinking of would be like Malignant or something where like, I like that movie a lot, but it's mostly because of the kind of the crazy twists and turns, that it takes and where it kind of goes over the rails. But, it's not like a movie that I take like very seriously, which, I was thinking maybe that might be the case with this. Like, okay, maybe it's so dumb and crazy that it's actually fun watching. But yeah, I guess that's kind of where I was going into it, which yeah, so I wasn't really excited at first, but then after all the positive buzz and stuff, I actually really was excited to kind of fast track it, because we still have other movies we need to watch, and we had some other options of going for, but since it was just on streaming, it's like, yeah, like let's do this, and I was kind of excited to see it, so going in. But yeah, that's kind of where I was.
Yeah, I thought the trailer looked pretty rough. Myself was also kind of surprised at all the positive buzz once it came out. Wasn't really sure what to make of it. What's interesting, you said that at least from the trailer, it looked like a bland horror movie. And I guess the point I would make here is when I sat down to watch it, I didn't realize until it came up saying so that it was a Paramount movie, and that stuck out to me just because most horror movies now are either Blumhouse or they are Lionsgate or New Line. Like those are your horror producers of various degrees. So it was just kind of weird to get like one of the big studios that don't necessarily do a lot of horror, or at least haven't in a while. I mean, Paramount did distribute like the Paranormal Activity movies, so I guess they have had a hat in the ring. But I just wonder if that's maybe like, this is a bigger studio horror movie. Maybe that's partly why you relatively felt that from the trailer. Yeah. So
now, did you know that? I mean, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this was actually supposed to go straight to Paramount Plus, but it had like such a good like audience reactions or test screenings or something that they actually moved it to theaters.
Oh, really? I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, it was one of the movies that was getting buzz. Like, on the run up to Halloween, you had Barbarian, you had Halloween Ends, you had Terrifier 2, and Smile was the fourth movie that was kind of still doing the rounds and
kind of like snuck in there. That like, oh yeah, I wasn't expecting this, but yeah, it seems to be contending with everyone.
Yeah, and I saw positive stuff on social media. So, yeah, kind of went in with a fairly optimistic, even though I thought the trailer looked bad, there was enough positive buzz. I was like, okay, all right, let's give it a try and see how it is. So with all that, I asked him the very simple question: how do you feel about Smile?
Yeah, I kind of started to like question a lot of people's tastes, because I thought this movie was absolutely awful. Like, I don't know why so many people like were into it. Like, I don't know if it's just a weird social media thing where like, it was funny. Like, is this like a Morbius morbid time kind of thing where it's funny to be like, oh, I'm getting my smile on or something. But no, I thought this was like horrible. First of all, it's way too long. It's nearly 2 hours, and most of it I thought was painstakingly boring. Like we kind of thought from the trailer, the movie just looks really generic and bland. The main character, while she's a good enough actress and stuff, like I don't think she was gave a bad performance, but the character I just thought was so boring. It was just one of those very bland, like, I'm a doctor doing my job and I care about things, and there was so much stuff that was predictable, like, oh yeah, okay, you're cursed now, and like I could really like see like the beats kind of coming. She's like interacting with characters and stuff, like it's very obvious, like, okay, this seems like about the time where she's gonna see something that no one else can see, and she's gonna freak out and everyone's gonna think she's crazy. Okay. And yeah, I didn't think any of the smiling was creepy or scary at all. Like, I don't know, it all just looked goofy to me. And which makes it like feel like there's no tension or anything in the movie. Like, I never once felt, scared or on edge or anything for the protagonist. There's no interesting lore or anything like associated with it, so it's not like there was any, like parts of the story where I was like really invested to find out like what was happening or what was going on. It feels super derivative. Like you mentioned The Ring, like, yeah, this reminded me of The Ring, reminded me of It Follows. It even reminded me of The Happening. Like, it just felt like it's such a hodgepodge of, pretty much other movies. Like, it's basically the standard template for like a generic studio movie about someone who's been cursed. If I'm gonna maybe go a little positive, there's a couple of things I liked in like literally the last 5 minutes of the movie. Like, I liked some of the ending, but I mean, that's 5 minutes out of an hour and 55-minute movie. So yeah, I am legitimately baffled by the positive reaction this has been getting, because I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. So if people are just like, oh yeah, it's fine, like I wouldn't really be on such a tear to kind of knock the movie down or whatever. Like, but the fact that so many people love this, just, I don't know, it just baffles me. I'm scratching my head like, what, like, this is the most generic bland movie that feels like, you know, it would have came out in like 2007 or something, and you know, no one would have batted an eye. And I mean, maybe it's just because we haven't gotten a movie like this in a while that people are kind of excited about it or whatever. But yeah, I don't know, I'm at a loss for words, like why people seem to be so into this, because I just thought it was such a bore, such a generic bland mess, like so uninteresting. And yeah, I didn't enjoy it, in case you couldn't tell.
Yeah,
sorry to be so yeah, I'm probably coming off as being very catty, but I don't know. I just, it really rubbed me the wrong way, and I did not enjoy it.
Yeah,
if you liked it, that's fine.
I just finished watching it before we came on. You know, all, you know, 1 hour and 55 minutes of it, as you mentioned. That did make me do a double take when I started. I was like, wait, 2 hours? What? Why? What's the meaning of this? How dare you? Yeah, like I say, I didn't like the trailer. I went in, positive buzz, so let's see how it goes. If there's one thing that I am really sick of in horror movies in general, and one trope that I do not like, and I've brought this up numerous times on the show with numerous movies, is I really have a very low tolerance for main character is experiencing something supernatural, and the people in her life, and because it's usually it's usually a wife, and the husband doesn't believe her, but the people around her don't believe anything's going on and just think she's crazy. I have a very low tolerance for that, and that is 90% of this movie.
Yeah.
So right away, just on a personal level, it's what it is not something that really works for me. It was that stuff actively just grates in my nerves. So
correct me if I'm wrong, but like I feel like a lot of times when they do that trope, they always have like the added trope in there of, oh, like the family has a history of mental illness, or like maybe some type of like drug or abuse problem or something, which, you know, they totally end up doing this movie where it's like, oh, well, of course no one believes her, because yeah, I feel like halfway in or whatever they reveal like, oh, well, your mother had like hallucinations or whatever. And I don't, like, to me that just feels like kind of tropey as well.
Yeah, I could see that. I'll defend that slightly in a second, but I mean, I don't disagree with the general statement. I did not really like the movie. I think it's a combination of things. What I just said about me not liking that trope and just finding it grating. So there was a lot of scenes where it's just like, okay, something's about to happen, no one else can see, and it's just going to be cringe because you know. So, and I didn't enjoy that element of it. I agree with you. Every single scene where someone tried to be creepy by smiling, I just thought was goofy. There's one scene, I mean, they're all goofy to me, but there's one in particular that I thought was so laughably bad that it just like destroyed any chance of the movie drawing me in from that point on. Probably about 2/3 through, I would say. So I didn't like that. Otherwise, I didn't really like. You know, like I said, the structure of this is The Ring or Ringu. You know, it's very much that. I'd say it's more that than It Follows. Although I did think of It Follows right at the start when someone's describing like what they see, and it was very much like the description of like the thing in It Follows that's following.
Well, I think that's where the It Follows comparison comes in, because like the thing that's, I guess, kind of attacking or like haunting you or whatever can take the shape of like any person. So like, and you're the only one that can see it. So to me, that felt very It Follows.
It felt It Follows when it was being described, but to be honest, the rest of the movie didn't, like, to me.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, it has none of the talent or like tone or like atmosphere of It Follows. So yeah, I agree with that. It's just the like the, what do you call it, like the description. I guess like you said, that reminds me of it.
Yeah, so all those things kind of just didn't work for me. I don't think it's complete trash in that it does feel, partly because it does have a bit of a budget. It does feel like it's a competently made movie. But at the same time,
performances are good. Like,
yeah. But for the most part, there's one or two moments that I'm going to point out that I didn't like. But what I also didn't like though was that a lot of it, if you're not into the creepy smiling at people as like a spooky thing, and I suspect that just enough people do think it's creepy, and that's why people like it. Other than that, you have a lot of just kind of shitty jump scares. You have, faces
Absolutely.
right around, when she'll turn around and the face is right there. Wah! Jump. There's a lot of that in this. Didn't really like that. The one positive thing I'll say is that at least it is trying to kind of say something. That, much like a lot of good horror movies, there's kind of an allegory here, specifically about trauma and dealing with trauma, and that's kind of what the whole thing represents. We'll get into that more in spoilers. But I do appreciate that it has something to say. I just don't like how any of it actually plays out as a movie. I don't like the plot. I don't like the way the scares are done. I don't enjoy the character looking more and more crazy to everyone else when they're actually experiencing something supernatural. Obviously, there's lots of movies I like that have a little bit of that in it, but typically it'll be for a short period of time, and then someone will believe them, or it'll be whatever. Right? There'll be a different way of going about it as it goes on. And fundamentally, I never really felt much of like a good atmosphere in this. And I think when it comes to horror, especially when you're doing something supernatural, atmosphere is so important.
Oh, absolutely,
yeah. And I didn't really feel much of that. So, I mean, I'm not going to say it's absolute garbage, but I will say that I did not enjoy watching it really at all.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the same thing. Like, again, I know I probably sound really harsh, but it's like, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world by far. To me, it's just like weird that so many people are super into it, when to me, it's like, if I just watched it without hearing all like the hype and positive reviews and stuff, I would have just been like, oh, whatever, and it's fine, I guess. But yeah, to me, it's just like kind of baffling that so many people seem to be like really into it, when it's to me it's just not anything that interesting really. But yeah, I mean, I agree, like we've definitely watched way worse movies. Like there's a level of this movie where it doesn't look terrible, and again, they got performers and stuff who know what they're doing, so it's not like complete garbage. But yeah, to me, it's just nothing special either. It's just very bland and uninteresting and generic. So it's more just baffling that people seem to be super into it.
I don't think I can remember a movie in recent times where the core concept that I do think is working for people, which is this creepy smiling like gimmick. I don't know if there's like a core concept to a horror movie that I can think of in a long time that I have just so strictly like I just strictly just don't get it. I just think it's stupid, and I don't think it works. I don't think it's creepy. I think like all the attempts, like the first time someone smiles creepily in this movie, I just kind of like stared blankly and felt nothing for it. I didn't even laugh because it's not even funny. Like it's just it feels like someone's trying really hard to be creepy.
It's very try hard.
And I don't think it's like a try hard movie overall, but that's central thing that clearly the people make it, the writer director Parker Finn, if that is his real name, like clearly he likes this idea, and clearly enough people do because people are into it. But I felt nothing from any of those scenes. Like I just like every single one of them felt completely flat to me.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of like a weird person, like that you don't know or whatever, just randomly smiling at you, like I could see that being creepy, but again, you would have to probably have like the right kind of atmosphere and like the right look and stuff, and it never does anything like that. Like it's always just kind of a normal like looking person, like to the point where it's like almost kind of silly, but like you said, it's not really like making you laugh either. It's just like, all right, whatever. I don't know, it's very bizarre. I mean, yeah, maybe we're just it's very out of touch, and we're just don't mind people that smile at us.
I don't actually think that's the case. A part of me wonders if this is like a, like you said, it's a very mainstream horror movie. It's something that, like, is this like, I'm not saying everyone who likes this is under this category, but I do wonder if like the popularity of it is very much like a casual thing. Like, it's the casuals who like it, but like more ardent horror, or well, not ardent, but more experienced horror fans, let's say, probably aren't necessarily that impressed by it. Maybe that's not true. I don't know.
I mean, that's what I would kind of think, but I don't know. I feel like at least some of the people I've like seen online and stuff that have had reactions to it are, usually more, like avid horror fans. So, I mean, again, maybe it's just some weird thing where something about this movie just works for some people. I don't know, but I do agree overall, though, it is a bit more mainstream than like some of the other movies that we like a bit more.
Yeah. And it just kept making me think of better movies, which is also not a good,
Sure.
part. Cal Penn's in this. He's like the main character's boss at her work, which is a psychiatric hospital. And honestly, like, there's a couple of scenes with him where, and it's not really his fault per se, but he's just like, he's associated with like comedy acting so much that
Sure.
when he's being concerned or freaking out about something, it just, I don't know, it feels like I can't really take you seriously, because I associate you not with serious characters, and I'm finding it difficult to take you in a serious authoritative role.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I mean, usually he's a very funny guy, so you think in a movie called Smile, you'd want him to make you smile, but he doesn't. I kind of had a similar thing with the guy that plays is it the ex-boyfriend? I never really knew what their relationship was.
Yeah, it was an ex-boyfriend. Yeah, ex-boyfriend. Okay. Yeah, the guy who was in I think he was in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. He was in.
Oh yeah.
He was in Smallville for a bit, I'm sure.
See, yeah, I remember him from he played Beaver in Veronica Mars.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, I remember that.
Which that's what like whenever I saw his face, I was like, that's like I don't know, because it's not even like, I'm not like a huge Veronica Mars fan. Like I like the show, like when I watch it, but it's not like I rewatch it all the time or something. But for some reason, something about maybe his face or whatever just stuck out to me and made me think of that character.
Yeah, he's also just recently actually was in Scream 5. He was like the
was he?
weird older boyfriend.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that character.
Which is actually kind of funny because, like, he was playing teenagers and stuff like over a decade ago. Yeah. And obviously in this movie, he's like an adult. He's a cop. He's playing a suitable role. But it's just kind of funny that he was like the older boyfriend to a teenager in that movie earlier this year.
Yeah.
I don't know. A-Train from The Boys is the fiance to the main character.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So you got him.
He gets nothing to do.
Here. Oh yeah, he has nothing to. He's just the guy. He's just the fiance who's concerned about her, and doesn't really believe her when she says spooky things are happening. And then there's no continuation to that. There's no payoff to it. It's just kind of that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over again, but I thought every character in this was just so generic and bland. Like, yeah, even the main character, who I guess is it Kevin Bacon's daughter?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Which, I mean, I don't know if she's been in a lot before, but I mean, she seems like a decent actress. But again, though, like I got no personality from her character whatsoever, other than like, all right, she, is like a good person because she, is like a doctor, therapist, and likes doing her job and doesn't want to go into private practice because she wants to help as many people as she can. Like, all right, just very bland. Like, she's a good character. And then, yeah, like everyone else was just like, all right, here's concerned fiance, and here's like kind of slightly dangerous ex-boyfriend, and here's, the like kind of like angry-ish boss, and the I guess maybe the one people that kind of have a little bit of personality are like the sister and her husband. Like, they're playing kind of the douchey characters, which I guess is a little fun or whatever. But Yeah, I mean, everyone else just is very bland and boring.
Yeah. Oh, I never really showed the boss to be angry. He was just, if anything, he was just concerned as well.
He's just kind of, I don't know, he's kind of like fed up with her, but well, not like in an angry way, but I guess like her shenanigans, as you could put it. Stop watching people commit suicide in front of you. Stop it.
She only did that once. Honestly, I mean, one of the other things you said is that it was quite dull and like boring at points, and I think part of that is just like how much time it's stretched over. It's almost 2 hours long, and I definitely felt the slog of it sort of creeping in at various points. There's not a whole lot of mythology to go along with it. It's kind of relying on what the allegory is for and what it represents. And obviously, one of the things I love about It Follows is that it's got a meaning behind it. It's not just what it literally is. It's kind of representing something else. It's representing the loss of innocence and growing up, and how once you lose it, like that's it. Like it follows you for the rest of your life. Like there's kind of a point to it. But obviously, to go along with that, you have actual entertainment. You have entertaining scenes. You have creepy moments that are actually quite invigorating. You got good music. I didn't even notice any music in this at all in the jump scare stings, I don't think. If there was music of note, I did not notice it.
Yeah. I can't think of any.
Yeah, so I didn't really notice any, like, the only time I really noticed the direction, honestly, other than some big set piece moments where it had to like sort of hide something and like turn the camera around or whatever, is that I do think it was very intentionally early on doing a lot of like very straight on close-ups of like when the main character meets the young woman who kind of comes with the problem and is already cursed. Like, as she's talking to her, there's a lot of like dead on, like uncomfortable close-ups of each of them, which felt very intentional, and it at least gave me the sense that the director was going for something, even if I don't necessarily feel much from the rest of the movie. It did feel like, oh, he's doing something here with style to a point. He's not just doing shot reverse shot. He's doing a very intentionally or a very unconventional framing to make it feel like kind of, I don't know, almost to the point where I was almost expecting the first smile to just kind of like break out at any point on her face. It almost felt like it was this intense close up, so that when she smiled, it was going to feel like a big, like, oh no, it's a smile, kind of thing. Yeah, and honestly, for me, like, I think the strength, if you're going to go with the allegory, I think you ruin it a little bit if you go a little bit too over the top with it, and I do think there is some over the top stuff towards the end that I did not like either, where you bring in some CG stuff, and I'm just there's a certain point where if you're not leaving it to my imagination, I'm just kind of, I don't know. It's the same problem I have with a lot of horror movies that feel the need to visualize certain things that I think are better left in the dark, shall we say.
I mean, I got thoughts on that, but I don't want to get spoilery, so let's save them.
Well, sure, we can go spoilers. Let's say spoilers now. From henceforth, we'll talk about all the various elements. I think first things first, we need to talk about all the spooky scenes, all the smiling scenes, which
sure.
So the first scene is obviously the first woman who comes in and ultimately slits her throat while smiling at her main character, and we find out as the film goes on that the rules are that this thing will make someone commit suicide after they're seeing this entity in front of them for anything between 4 days to a week, and she kills herself in front of the main character, which obviously curses her. I mean, I'll give it this. It didn't shy away from the violence of it. You see quite a bit of this, so fair play there. But from there, our main character starts to experience things. I think at first it's literally just a spooky figure in the dark, right? When she's home alone, right? It's really simple stuff like that.
I think there was a couple of times where I kind of liked the direction of like she would be looking down like like a dark hallway or whatever, and there'd be nothing there, but the way she's looking at it's like so dark that as a viewer you're kind of like, okay, like, ooh, what could possibly be in there? Like there's a few times like that I was like, okay, I kind of like this little bit of spookiness.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges with this type of premise, and something that I think Ringu does quite well, is that, and Ringu especially says, you're not going to die for 7 days. So it's like, okay, I know there's no threat for 7 days. So we've got a race against time, but in order for this movie to work, I have to care about the investigation, because that's what we're going to actually be doing for, the bulk of the movie. And I think here it's like, okay, you're eventually going to do this. And honestly, the most interesting I think it ever really got is when she's tried to start out thinking like the rules, and the one thing she ever comes up with that I liked as an idea is that, well, it needs a witness, so if I like seclude myself and stay alone, then it can't pass on, and therefore it won't do its thing, it won't kill me.
Or solid logic.
Yeah, like that made sense to me, and it was the first time in the whole movie that I even liked anything they said about it, because I was like, okay, that actually makes sense, that's using your brain given what they've set up at this point. So I appreciate that. But anyway, so we have all the spooky scenes. We have the one I really want to talk about that there's two that I really disliked, right? One, I don't even remember what order they played in. I think the therapist is first, because that's the one I hated the most. So
like when she comes to the house?
Yeah, so early on in the film she goes to a therapist when she starts seeing stuff and talks to her. She sees her again briefly when the fiancé kind of calls her over, and then there's a scene where she comes over to the house and she's like, hey, sorry I ambushed you, let's have a talk about what's going on. And they're sitting on the couches in the main character's house, and then the phone rings though, and it's the therapist, revealing that what's sitting in the room with her is not the therapist. So the therapist, we cut to her and she's got this stupid smile on her face, like as she sort of stands up and she's walking towards her. And this one's especially bad because she starts talking with like a demonic voice, and like that's stuff stupid. I hate this shit. Like I hate it so much. All I could think of during this scene was just how over the top it was and how much of a fake movie thing it felt to me. I didn't get anything eerie from it.
See, I don't mind the core idea of, you're, like someone's in your house and then you realize that they're like a doppelganger or imposter or whatever. Like that idea
that's not the problem. That part's fine. It's everything that happens after the realization.
It's so cheesy and dumb. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. The other one I didn't like, which this one, like, it kind of doesn't count because it turned out to be a dream, but at the same time I still had to watch it, so I'm counting it. So the other rule, actually, because it turns out when she goes to research all this stuff with her ex-boyfriend as a cop, like they're able to like trace back the chain of suicides 20 places, and he points out though that there's only 20 suicide victims, like one of them didn't die. And it's like, oh shit, I need to talk to him. So they go to the prison where he is, because he's been held in prison because he murdered someone. So even before they get there, and this was actually one of these parts of the movie that was quite tedious in a way, because it was like, okay, like as soon as you've said he's in prison because he murdered like a neighbor, I'm like, okay, it's exactly like The Ring. He killed someone else and it skipped him and it passed it on to someone new without him having to die. That's The Ring, right? So which not that you literally have to kill someone, but you have to make a copy of the tape and you have to show it to someone and like pass the curse on without you doing the death part yourself, right? It felt like the exact same thing to me. And why this is so tedious at this part of the movie is because the second they say he's in prison because he killed a neighbor, you're like, oh, I get it, he's killed someone else instead, so it passed on from him to someone else. But we have to go through the rigmarole of driving to the prison. She's talking in the car to the ex-boyfriend. They're coming in through security. She sits down. he won't talk until the ex-boyfriend leaves, and then he starts talking about how he was able to get through this. You have to kill someone, and you have to do it traumatically. It has to be like a big gruesome death for it to work, but there has to be a witness, and it'll pass on to them. And the sad part is at the very end of this scene, I actually do kind of like, is that when he realizes it's her, and that she lies and says that she's got a patient who's saying she's got this. When she says she can't kill someone and he realizes it's her, he starts freaking out because he realizes, wait a minute, I'm alone with you, and you could kill yourself and you could pass it back on to me. I actually did like that he reacts to that, because that was using the rules to create an interesting reaction. But the problem I have with this entire 5 to 10 minute segment of the movie is that the second they say he's in prison for murdering someone, I'm like, I get it. I know exactly what he's going to say already. And it just felt like we were going through the motions of doing it. So the one little bit at the end where he freaks out when he realizes he's alone with who's got the curse, I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. But all of it up until that point, I was like, I know where this is going. Like, you've already told me. I get it.
So one of the things that makes the ring so interesting is, it instantly has all, this lore and everything attached to it, and it has the cursed videotape and all the different images, so there's already mystery and intrigue there. With this, there isn't really anything interesting about it, and you pretty much know everything you need to know right away. Okay, someone kills themselves in front of you, you start seeing smiling people, and then you kill yourself in front of someone else. There's not much investigating or mysteries that will keep you kind of hanging on and wanting to learn more.
That's actually a good point. That's one of the other frustrating things I found, is that we know that obviously she sees this girl kill herself in front of her, and then it very quickly, I mean, in fact, even before she does that, we already know that this girl witnessed a guy bash his head in with a hammer, right? So we already know that the girl saw someone else commit suicide. So yeah, the audience already gets it. This is how it's passed on. So eventually, if you're cursed, you kill yourself in front of someone else, which infects them, and so on and so on. But we have scenes where she goes to speak to the widow of the guy that killed himself, the girl at the start saw, and is surprised to find out that he saw someone kill themselves a week earlier. And I'm like, why are you surprised by this? This is the most obvious thing that you could have found out. And
this leads to a trope that I hate in movies where the person's going crazy, so they're just continuously drawing all these random images, and of course the person is just a terrific artist. I keep looking at these pictures and I'm like, wow, I don't think they said this guy was an artist, but he definitely could have been. He's really good.
Yeah, and it leads to some frustrating moments with the character where I think she's perfectly reasonable a lot of the movie, but there's a moment where she takes the printouts of all these different crime scenes and stuff to her sister, and she just says everything in such a way where she does sound like a nut job. And it's really frustrating, because if you just calmly said and explained, I mean, maybe she wouldn't believe that it's something supernatural, because that's a lot to accept, but she comes off sounding unhinged because she says, oh, there's something following me, here it all is, here, look at this crane photo of someone who's dead, and just shows her this nasty photo, and I'm like, no, say what happened to you. You saw someone commit suicide at your work, but the weird thing is that they saw someone else commit suicide a week earlier. And the weird thing is that he saw someone else commit suicide a week before that, and it keeps going back. Look, I've got the crime records of 20. I've got a daisy chain of 20 suicides along the way. So likelihood dictates that somehow I'm going to be next. And you may not believe it, but you can't deny that after 20 in a row, it feels quite likely somehow. I don't know. So that really annoyed me, because it felt like it was just it wants the sister to think she's crazy. The movie that is that wants the sister to think she's crazy in this scene for the drama of it, and it felt just awkward.
It's something that I don't like in movies, which kind of is connected to you were saying how you hate the this person looks crazy and no one believes them kind of thing. But I hate I guess similar, where people are just kind of arguing and yelling, and no one will ever just kind of calmly sit down and explain the situation. But yeah, it all feels just very like formulaic where, oh yeah, obviously she looks crazy because she's saying everything this way. Which is kind of funny. Like I feel like Barbarian did it in a very like good, clever way where, they have like one character at one point talking to some cops, but they actually like, like weave in like instances of like why, the cops like wouldn't believe her and, the stuff that she's saying, like where versus like, this where, yeah, she's just acting very big and over the top and crazy because it's a movie and the movie wants you or wants, her to look insane, where instead, well, like
that scene in Barbarian though, that part of the point is the cops are being assholes for just dismissing what she's saying. Like there's kind of a point to it there. And I'm not saying there's not a point to it here, because the movie is about trauma and how it spreads from one person to the next, and the main character's got this trauma of finding her mother like dead by suicide as a kid, and that's still something she's living with, and it's going into all this stuff. Like I get kind of what it's going for. I just don't find any of it entertaining to actually watch. Or even, entertaining is not even the right word. It's not even engrossing. I'm not like into it. I'm not feeling the drama of it. Anyway, that's not that I was getting to this earlier. So I explained seeing the prisoner dude who explains that you have to kill someone in front of someone else for it to pass over you. The reason why I was explaining that was because the other scene that I wanted to complain about that I hated is, it turns out to be a dream sequence and she's still just sitting in the car, but she goes into her place of work, or hospital, and there's this patient that we've seen a couple of times earlier on who's just always muttering to himself, we're all going to die, everybody dies, so on. And basically she's going to like kill him to successfully pass on the curse. And her boss comes in, and this was actually the moment where I thought the acting was a bit weird. The way he yells at her, no, when she starts stabbing the patient, I just felt was really goofy, and the whole scene just felt really goofy to me. Even the way she was just like, because it's a side shot of her just stabbing him repeatedly, and I'm like, this should be horrifying, or it should feel visceral, and it felt really weird, and in a way that I didn't think was like what it was going for. I there was something very blasé about the whole thing that just it felt odd. And then I got annoyed when she just woke up in the car, because like screw the wake up, it was just a dream, like fake out scare nonsense. So I hate that scene too. That and the therapy scene were easily the two scenes that like I hated the most, where this doesn't work. Like everything you're trying to achieve in these scenes, there's obviously the scene from the trailer where, in the movie, I realize it's a sister it's meant to be that walks up to her car, but then the head like comes down upside down and smiles at her. Yeah,
which I don't understand. Like, what is the point? Like, why is the demon or the monster like doing this? Because essentially it seems that they just like take over eventually and just kill them, but like, do they need to weaken them or something first? Like
that's actually one of my problems with a lot of movies, supernatural movies in particular, is because in It Follows, it's really simple. It's coming for you, and if it gets to you and makes contact, that's it. It's over, right? So it's just always coming, and if you see it, you have to run. You have to move. Here, because I was thinking early on, is it going to be like It Follows, where if it touches you, that's it, that's when you smile and kill yourself, right? But it's not. Like this thing's like can pop in at any point and be right next to her. It's just messing with her effectively. It's like going out of its way to like mess with her life, and I never really feel like, okay, but why is it doing this? Does it just feed on the trauma, I guess? Does it just feed on like because I have this problem with a lot of like supernatural movies where I'm like, yeah, but why is the demon doing this particular thing? This doesn't feel like it's helping the demon or the ghost for its goal of like, if the goal is ultimately possessing someone, or if the goal is ultimately whatever. No, I mean, this doesn't go for all movies that have these in it. I'm just like, but there's been enough of them that really bug me, where it feels like, okay, the creators of the movie thought of this spooky scene they wanted to do, but why is the entity doing this?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of movies that do that that give me that feeling of like, but why is it doing this? And yeah, there's a lot of scenes in this movie where, okay, the entity just did a spooky scare where it jumped at her, or it made a noise, or it pretended to be someone else and then went ooh, and like a lot of it, I didn't really feel like, why is it doing that though? What's the purpose of it?
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, like the actual purpose is just to give like a cheap jump scare to the audience. But yeah, like in terms of the movie, it's like, okay, I don't really understand why you're doing this. Like, I mean, my guess is that it probably, in order to take over your body and kill you, it probably needs you to be like maybe in this kind of crazed, frazzled state. So it's doing all this stuff to mess with you and just get you on edge, I guess. But again, there's like, I think it doesn't really give you much to go on.
And the problem I have as well is that I could accept it to a point if, like, on the thematic side, it represented something and what it was trying to say about trauma. But the problem is that, like, so many of the individual moments just feel so random. And so, like, when the sister walks back out to the car just to do the head tilt thing, and it's not really the sister, she just thinks it's her sister. Like, that moment, like, it's not even in front of anyone to, like, cause her more, like, embarrassment. It's just a scare to scare her, and it's a scare for the audience. Like, there's not really any purpose for it other than that. And the problem with that is that I end up just feeling like, oh, I'm watching a movie that just wants to have a lot of jump scares, and there's not really any reason for most of them, Whereas some of them could add to the theme if it's like, well, this jump scare happened at this moment because she's talking to her sister about her mother, so it's going to reveal that that's something she has, like, a she's got a trigger for, right? So it's but it doesn't. They're mostly just these independent weird little scenes that want to be scary.
Yeah, and like, also that, like, one scene, it's like kind of strange because you never see anything else really like that in the movie. Like, most of the other times when she sees people messing with her, it's usually just someone smiling, and then maybe they'll like act like they're gonna like hurt themselves or something. But I mean, it's been a few days since I watched it, so correct me if I'm wrong, like, other than the end where it gets really supernaturally, but I don't think there's any other instances where it does like some weird big body changing thing, like, turning the head upside down.
No. I mean, I guess you could argue it's like, because this is like relatively far in the movie. Maybe it's because it's getting closer to when it's going to actually transform into the big, lanky, tall, demonic-looking woman. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's her dead mother, but, like, by the time she's transformed, she's not really her anymore. She's just this big, evil-looking woman, who we see get into her mouth to set herself on fire, which is the end of the movie. Although not before a fake out where she thinks she's beat it because she's been alone with it and set it on fire. And I get what it was doing here. It was trying to do this thing where it's like, oh, her original trauma is actually her dead mother and finding the dead mother. And we find out later in the film that she didn't actually find her dead. She had a chance to save her and didn't do it. She didn't call for help when her mother was ODing. So it's like, okay, like, this is her trauma. And part of me thought, okay, all right, I kind of get that maybe the way she wins this is that she gets over her real trauma. The idea that everyone this goes into, they all have something real that was already there that they have to, like, try and, like, win against, and, like, stop the spread of their not mental illness, but whatever, So I was like, okay, that's interesting. But it did that thing where she kind of thought she won too easily, and I'm like, yeah, you've not won. There's no way this is over. And she goes back to the boyfriend, or the ex-boyfriend, sorry, and says, the reason why we kind of broke up is because I actually felt for the first time in my life that I was letting you in on a personal level that I'd never let anyone in before, and that scared the shit out of me. And she starts making all these confessions. Like, I kind of get what it was going for, and, like, okay, she's trying to actually get past all of her problems, and that's maybe how she wins. But fundamentally, it still plays out like, oh, she thinks burning it was enough to kill it, even though it's a supernatural entity. And I'm like, does fire even affect this thing? But she just thinks that it has, and she leaves. But she doesn't really leave. We find out she's still there. Well, but
I mean, if you think about it, what is a smile's one weakness? Fire.
A smile's one weakness is your mother?
What? Oh, not my mother, the character's mother.
No, I meant your mother.
Oh, how dare you? Yeah. Yeah. So I will kind of confess, like I did kind of like the ending a little bit, like in a fun, cheesy way, because it does go so over the top, and it is very like CGI, which is annoying. But I was kind of like, the movie had been so uninteresting and boring and dour to me for so long that I did kind of like at the end when it's like, okay, we got this big demon and it's CGI, but I do kind of like the concept of it. Like, you know, it's kind of big and tall and weird and like has like all these like smiles upon smiles in its mouth. Like, I was like, okay, like I kind of dig how crazy and over the top this is getting. But
yeah, because it's like, you know, it's like a woman who's gotten very tall and unnatural. Mm-hmm. But I think what you're talking about is when she rips off her skin and she's just this like skinless demon looking thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But I kind of liked all of this just because it was, I don't know, it just felt like over the top and things were happening. But I mean, again, though, this is just like 5 minutes out of, you know, an hour 55-minute movie, so it's not, I can't give it like too much credit. Like, you know, even if I did kind of liked it, it's not like I loved it. It's just like, okay, I kind of like this, but it's just such a small fragment of a movie I didn't like.
This is the sort of thing that I usually don't like anyway, and I especially didn't like it here because it felt like it was out of place in what the movie had been up until this point. And it's frustrating because I feel like the ending of this movie, and admittedly this would be taken from It Follows a little bit, but the ending of this movie, to me, the natural ending to fit with the themes would be if this represents trauma and like I feel like the ending should be that ultimately it's never going to go away. You just have to learn to live with it and control it and like manage it and accept it. And that in some level should be the ending, but instead it doesn't want that. It wants the ex-boyfriend rushes in and he's going to be the witness and she sets herself on fire, you know, cut to credits. You know, it wants to have the more generic horror movie ending. And I think that's, you know, I wouldn't have like fixed the movie for me, but I would have at least respected it for, you know, ending the way I felt like it should have.
And then, like, what does that say about like the message though, that like, yeah, like, you know, it's not like a very positive message. Like, if the whole movie's about trying to like escape or overcome trauma, then the movie's basically saying like, you can't, like, trauma will always win, like, and you're gonna pass it to someone else. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's not the most pleasant of things in the world. You know, because you have the fiancé character who kind of starts to get distant when she first admits that she's seeing something and that there's something weird going on, and he immediately sort of pulls away, and she even accuses him at one point of like, oh, like you're all nice and like, you know, the love of my life when everything's easy and friendly, but the second it gets difficult you kind of pull away. Like, I almost
pull out.
Very funny. It's almost like it was wanting to do something where he was like trying to shield himself from the trauma jumping to him, like in a just sort of a general sense where he's just trying to like, so it almost felt like the movie wanted to have a positive thing that maybe where the ex-boyfriend would, like, unlike him, he was always going to stick by her side and like be there for her. And the idea being that trauma is something you do get over to, even though you do kind of pass it on, like you share it if you manage it unhealthily, kind of like her mother passed it down to her by like committing suicide.
That reminds me, after the show I have to give you some trauma. I've been
very
saving
good.
For a bit.
Yeah. But yeah,
I forgot.
So, but you know, the idea that he inherently tries to shut himself off from it, but that we ultimately get through it by sharing it with each other, right? And that maybe that's
and our pets.
Yeah, and our pets. Which, oh, by the there's a cat in this.
R.I.P. mustache.
Does not meet a nice end. A cat which goes missing and then turns up dead inside the present to the main character's nephew. She got him like a model train or something like that, and he opens the box at the birthday party, and this is one of those moments in the movie you're just waiting for something cringe to happen, for everyone to like hater.
Yeah, like yeah, this is like the scene where I knew like, okay, like I'm just looking at my watch, being like, all right, yeah, we haven't had like a scene where she sees something and freaks out in a while, and oh hey, perfect setting, like birthday party in front of everyone, like okay, and then yeah, like just like right before it happened, like as soon as he was opening the present, I was like, there's gonna be not something good in there, and then like I thought, oh yeah, they purposely had the scene where they couldn't find the cat. Okay, I can very easily see where this is going, and yeah, I didn't like it. I felt bad for the cat. I felt bad for the kid. Not good.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating to me because like I can kind of see what it's going for, but like everything it actually is as a horror movie is mostly things I do not like. I don't like the character going crazy, or the character seeing supernatural stuff and everyone just thinking they're going crazy, and a lot of scenes that are very purposely set up to like really make her look crazy, and the character has dialogue to make her sound crazy. I just find that kind of frustrating. The smile stuff I think is really goofy. I don't think it's effective. I think it's silly, and but not even silly enough that I start laughing at it. I just think it's bad.
I agree.
And then yeah, lots of like the few moments that I kind of like got something out of it is the few things that's like, oh, this is like trying to like turn the rules on their head and use them to your advantage. I love that in movies. I love when characters are proactive and try and take it and do something with it to their advantage, but it just didn't really go far enough with that. And so much of the movies, the things that I don't like about these types of movies, that I did not enjoy it that much. It's not the worst thing ever. I think someone saying it's just fine is probably a pretty fair review of it. I don't think my rating's going to go like that negative because of that, because it's very serviceable in a lot of its elements. Sure. You know, it's serviceably acted, it's serviceably directed, but I don't think, like you say, there's not a lot of interesting lore, if any.
Yeah.
So
I don't think we really find anything out about the demon or whatever it is, like,
which I actually do appreciate to an extent, because like
it would have been cheesy if they went online and found out like, oh, this all started with these cult members who are worshiping a demon named Bagul, and like, oh, like some dumb thing like that. Yeah,
honestly, like I kind of respect that it didn't try to give you like a name for the demon or try to give you an origin of it, because honestly that's one of the worst. Even good movies, like sometimes some of the worst parts of them are where they try to just over explain like what the thing is. But I think where we would have liked more mythology is like just, I don't know, more to actually explore for the character to discover. Not necessarily answers per se, but just, I don't know. It didn't really feel like it had a lot to unwrap as we were going through it. It felt like we kind of got most of it very quickly, and then it was just kind of the character taking a long time to reach the same point as the audience.
Yeah, no, I think it's exactly like you said earlier. Like, we pretty much, like, from the start, we know what the deal is, so you're not like uncovering more mysteries as you go along. It's mostly just kind of waiting for what you know is gonna happen.
Yeah. And that's just not that fun. And if the characters were a lot more compelling and it was that, because I think for this to work for me, I think the way it's directed has to be, it can still be a horror movie overall, but it has to be a lot more of like a horror drama, where it's a lot more of a better character drama, where you're really sort of in the character's head, and the this is still too much of a horror movie with big jump scares to make me like really invest in what the character's going through, I think. You know, basically what I'm saying is that Ari Aster could make a good version of this movie. I think is what I'm saying. I think he could do the slow burn where you're just really with the character and like the slow kind of realization of what's going on. But I think you take out a lot of the silly jump scares. I think you take out a lot of the smiling scenes. I think you just you have the suicide at the start, and then you have the character like realize that this is a chain of suicides, and that, wait, what if that means I'm going to do this in a week? And you play with it from there, you know? Like, I don't know. But yeah.
I think, like, I don't know, just, I feel like if you want to do the whole smile thing, like, you just have to be more, like, subtle about it. Like, yeah, it's not like it's more goofy when you have a person like with this huge smile and you're doing a big close up on it and like they're looking right at you and stuff. Like if it was just more subtle stuff where like, you know, she just looks at someone real quick in the background who kind of has like, you know, just like a slight smile on them or whatever, and then they're gone or something like, you know, something like that would maybe be a little more like just have a bit more of like a mysterious or weird atmosphere versus like where it's like so blatant, like, you know, look, he's smiling, like, you know, big close up, big, you know, toothy smile, like, I don't like, I mean, we already said a bunch of times, but yeah, it just comes off as like silly more than
the only
any type
one
of creepy thing.
The only time I think it was mildly effective actually is when they're watching the security camera footage from one of the previous like suicides.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh, like they just see it sort of like, you know, smalling in the frame. You can sort of tell the guy's smiling as he picks up the garden shears, and it's like, oh, okay, that's a little creepier because it's on a tape and it's a little distorted, and it's like, oh, that's a bit weird.
It's like not right in your face and stuff.
And that's the other thing, is that you can't even enjoy it as a movie with a lot of gruesome deaths, because fundamentally, once we have our main character infected after the first suicide, you know, if anything, the more fun version of this is to have it actually jump from person to person to person, so we get a bunch of kills. So maybe you set it up so that it only takes a couple hours, and you set it all in like a night, like a slasher movie or something. Maybe I could get into that in a fun way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other way to make this enjoyable is, if it's like a 90-minute over the top, like super crazy, goofy, you know, movie where, the tops or the kills are very over the top and crazy, and you get a lot more of them, and it's not trying to be as precious, with itself as it is. Like that's the thing.
Yeah, I think that's fundamentally the problem I have with it. If I was to boil it up into one statement, is that it's taking itself seriously, which is fine, but all of its horror is not befitting of the serious tone that it's going for. The horror is far goofier than what it's going for with what its like drama side is, and as a result, those things clash, and I feel like neither one benefits from it, but both of them feel out of place together, and that's fundamentally, I just never felt like I was enjoying it as a result. So I guess it's time we rate the movie then, Timmy. What do you want to give Smile?
I guess I'll give it 4. I guess I'll give it a straight 4. I was trying to think if I want to go as high as a 4.5, and I don't know. There really isn't much I enjoyed in the movie, so I don't know. I can't go too high, but I don't want to go too low because, again, on a technical level, it's fine, and we've seen and covered much worse movies, so it's like, the acting for the most part is pretty good, and like, the direction is solid enough, I suppose, and other than it being like too long, it's not like it was like a torturous watch or anything, so I can't get too low, but also, and again, I can't go too high. Like, there's not really much I liked or enjoyed about watching it. I don't know, just it really didn't do anything to me, and again, I wouldn't complain or be as coming in as hot as I think I was if, again, it wasn't like this kind of hype and positive buzz around it. I'm sure there are people that didn't like it, but I really didn't see anyone like saying like, oh no, this movie is bad, like maybe I just didn't see enough different takes or watch enough reviews about it, but like the general take I saw on it was people being like, no, this is like good. And I'm just kind of curious as to why. Also, it's a bit of a bummer because I feel like we were on a hot streak for a while. Like there was a lot of movies that I feel like we did for the show that was really good.
Well, I had to come to an end at some point, Timmy.
Yeah, even like there's like a lot of stuff I watched in October that I enjoyed quite a bit, and I mean, obviously, you have some lulls and stuff, but overall, it's been a pretty good year for horror. And I've early in the year I probably had more misses that maybe I'm not thinking of, but this felt like the first big miss in a while that I had.
Yeah, I'm going to be little more generous and give it a 5. Just because I do think it kind of is that middling round, and it is trying to say something. But fundamentally, I just find the actual progression of the story very tedious and not enjoyable in any way. And I don't like, I don't get into the drama and I'm like, oh God, what's she going to do next? I'm like, no, I'm just like, we have to sit through this now. Oh, now we have to sit through someone reacting to this. All of it just kind of felt like a bit of a chore to get through to me. And part of that's my taste, I think. But, and clearly this did work for some people, but I just don't think any of the horror elements are effective in this. I think they're just kind of stupid, and that's a shame. So yeah, 5 out of 10 from me. So what can I say?
I'm curious.
I was not smiling at the end of this.
Very good. I'm curious if we're gonna see more, because I think it did relatively good at the box office. Like, there's a reason why it ended up going to theaters and was in there for a couple of weeks. So I'm curious if it could potentially be a franchise, or
don't.
I don't want it to be, but
you're cursing us with this thought right now, Tim. We're gonna have to do Smile 2 in like 2 years now.
Ugh. I'm not looking forward to it.
Smile 2. Shit-eating grin.
I tell you, who would have liked this movie though is that freaking Joker. He must have been crazy about it.
I'm not gonna lie. I did think of the Joker killing people with these Joker toxin, with the dead body lying there with the smile on her face. It made me think of the Joker a little bit.
If people want to hear more about his adventures, they can listen to Comics from the Multiverse podcast.
That is true. I do a DC Comics podcast, but you can find.
And now you owe me $5 because I plugged it.
I owe you no such thing. How dare you? That's our thoughts on Smile. It was a dull movie, and it's kind of a dull one to talk about because it's not even like, it's not like it's crazy, and I've got stuff to like,
that's also kind of disappointing. Like, at least if we didn't like it, you'd hope that there are some big crazy swings that you could talk about, like, oh my God, I can't believe they did this. But I mean, everything was a very kind of formulaic. Like, it's just like, I feel like we're kind of complaining about things that we've been complaining about for 5 years on the show. Like,
Yep. Well, there you go. That's Smile. It's not very good, but other people like it, so maybe you will. I don't know. But
it's on Paramount Plus now. Give it a watch.
Yes.
That streaming service everyone has.
Yes. And if you're looking forward to us doing Nope, you'll get that in January now, and it's Smile's fault that you're waiting until January for Nope.
Sorry.
And why January? Because we're going to December, everyone, and that means Christmas movies. So look forward to that. But yes, you can, of course, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications and all that stuff. It helps us out a lot. And of course, you can help us out financially by going over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and supporting us over there at the various tiers. You get 2 different bonuses. You get the bonus episode. I thought you froze there, Tim. You were just saying stuff. You get the bonus episode.
Taking a quick power nap.
Once a month, where you get an extra movie review, and then you get even more streams at the $5 tier, which is us just talking about the different horror movies we've been watching that are not for the show, just sort of casually. Plus, Tim usually quizzes me with a horror movie quiz. So you get those things, and so go and have a look. And also, one of the higher tiers, of course, is our producer tier. So I'll thank our Patreon producers for the month. Thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Tradesman, and Alison M. Fordyce. Thank you all. You make us...
Oh yeah, thank you so much.
What was that?
I was thinking of... Well, I can't thank the patrons. You're the only one that's allowed to.
No, you can, but you gotta admit, there was a bit of a sarcastic tone to that.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's Most sincere I've ever been in my entire life.
I don't know. I got a pinch of sarcasm, Tim. I got a pinch. All right, that is the show. Thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Make sure you check out the new podcast, The Collector's Cut, that I'm doing with David. I'm working through the Dirty Harry movies for our first season. Let's check that out. Just you wait until the even more version of Collector's Cut starts, Tim. You'll be very
just
upset.
the audacity to promote another show without asking me first.
You promoted Colors from the Multiverse without asking me.
That's because I feel passionate about that show.
Yeah. When was the last time you listened to an episode?
The last time I was current on my DC single issues.
So like 2016 then, I guess.
Yeah.
But yes, that's the show, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.